there's a leaflet outside that's being displayed, and it's just something that we need to happen. It needs to become part of our culture.
I think that's the key point. It needs to become part of our culture. Unfortunately, it's still alien, and that's why we have these questions in terms of making difference. But I just want to kind of also just be a little bit cautious, because I don't want to kind of say that there is such a thing as a big Muslim vote and that the Muslims can make a difference single-handedly in that sense. Having said that, so that's the disclaimer, okay, so everyone's got that. Having said that, 40% of the Muslim population live in London, okay, in the UK, 40% actually live in London. Add to that, 45% of Muslims across the country are 25 and under. Okay, this is a very young generation. Okay, so these people, these young Muslims, okay, they will have aspirations, they will have needs and everything else, and it's going to be exactly what Anas has mentioned. There are 20 seats definitely where Muslims are more than 20% of the electorate. Okay,
for MPs,
for constituency, for a member of parliament. Meaning, in those areas, in those areas, the Muslim population is so big that it actually can swing the vote in favor of any candidate. But that doesn't necessarily mean the Muslim community is going to vote in block. Okay, because that's kind of, if we try to work towards that, that's going to be kind of something that we're going to fail.
And I think it's problematic also to even suggest that.
Yeah, exactly. So the way to approach, and that's what we're trying to do, the way to approach all of this is exactly what Anna said, is on what really Muslims, like anyone else, have issues with. We have to make it, we have to kind of bring it back down to where the citizens actually say, you know what, Mr. MP or Mr. Councillor or whatever, if you want my vote, this is what's important to me. Tell me where you stand on this. It's just bring it back to that, and that's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight.
I mean, this is like providing. I don't know that it is suitable to mention this, but to provide a person or to teach a person how to fish, rather than just giving him
the fish.
To teach him, it takes time.
Correct.
Yeah, but it is more productive at the end of the day.
In the long run, I mean, we're all in agreement. Everyone agrees that Muslims should be active in some, capacity or another. I mean, we don't want to give the impression that we're just kind of talking to those people who, are completely outside or completely sleeping, or whatever. Alhamdulillah, most people who are engaged with, who, attend Sabeel or come to Islam21c, they're already kind of on the same page with regards to many of these things. The conversations we do have, I have been seeing and reading and listening to for the last few weeks, are more along the lines of as follows. Everyone agrees, housing is important, transport and so forth. But due to the last few weeks and perhaps the record, of some of the candidates standing, so we have, for Labour, we have Sadiq Khan. He's, being pushed as the Muslim kind of candidate. Who's
pushing him?
I mean, he's himself. He has been saying, he wrote in the Guardian that, having a Muslim mayor would send a good message to the world and so forth. Muslim mayor of London. On the other hand, we have on the Tories Zach Goldsmith, and it seems to be a two-horse race from the polls. They connect. Sadiq Khan's just ahead. The question that I do hear from Muslims is, however, that when it comes to, housing, transport, kind of stuff, fair enough, we engage, we care about, everything happens around us, but it becomes a matter of the personality more than the policy. So Sadiq Khan, he's been attacked, for example, in the last few weeks by Zach Goldsmith's campaign for sharing a platform with so-called extremists.
Sorry, Salman, can I just interrupt you?
Yeah.
In all of these things that you're hearing, and because you've said this phrase a few times, we all know that housing, education, employment, and policing, all of this is important. We all know this. You said that a few times. And in those discussions where everyone knows these things are important, can you tell me once when actually someone discussed what Zach Goldsmith stands for in terms of housing, what Sadiq Khan stands for in terms of housing?
This is, I agree.
Did they do that?
No, this is the problem. This is the problem.
And that's why. And so what we got to do is deal with the actually root cause of the problem, not the symptoms. The symptom, And I don't want to kind of go into the discussion and answering these things because it's a waste of time. It's just like having now a discussion whether can you vote or not. It's a waste of time. Okay, some people will have an opinion. They will always have that opinion. And alhamdulillah, let them. It's a free country. They can have their opinion. What we've got to do is we have to build on the positivities. And I think, where you witness these things in the future, and I say this to everyone that's watching this, where you witness these things, get into the actual discussion of what these people stand for. Forget about whether he's a Muslim, whether he's a Jew, whether it's a man, whether it's a woman, whether it's black, whether it's brown. Forget about all of these things for a moment and just focus on what is it these guys actually stand for. And you find that would be like pulling teeth.
Yeah, so
and that's what we have to now make exciting.
Yeah, see, I think for whatever reason, and one of the candidates or some of the candidates, maybe they hijacked the scene, and then instead of letting the discussion to be over these important things, all of a sudden the discussion started about you shared a platform with so on, so it means that you are this and that. And on top of that, I don't know whether I can say it or not, but the Prime Minister, when he was involved in this discussion, he made it worse.
Sheikh Salman, yes. No, we can say that. And we should say this. We should say this.
This is a problem that our responsibility, as well as, to be honest, every single Londoner, or every single one who's involved in voting or in what's going to happen on Thursday. I think that they should absolutely reject the narrative that has emerged over the past few weeks, and which remarkably, the Prime Minister found appropriate to get involved with under parliamentary privilege. I mean, it was absolutely disgusting that all of a sudden a campaign about Londoners' lives, about 8 million people's lives, became about an imam who it turns out is quite friendly with all the political parties, all the political candidates, and someone who is quite respectable in his own community. So I think that it's incredibly important that we as citizens, we absolutely reject and refuse to engage in the kind of base debate that has emerged, and we shift the focus back on what's important. And back to this, I absolutely agree with Azad. The other day I was in Leeds in West Yorkshire over the weekend, and I had several discussions because again they have their council election and they have the police commission elections over there, and people were asking me, and we were having these discussions and debates, and someone said, yeah, but none of them is a Muslim. Who do I? And I said, listen, can I just ask you a question? If you were, God forbid, if you were ill, and and you were searching for a doctor, would you care about how they would believe, or would you search for the best doctor? And in the case of the elections that we're having right now, this is precisely it. We are looking for the mayor who will deliver the best services and the best policies for the future of London. Because when the best is delivered for everyone, obviously Muslims will benefit, as well as all the communities that make up London will benefit. And that is what is important. That's the kind of discussion. But I also agree with Azad. How many of us have looked at Sadiq Khan's manifesto? How many of us have read Zach Goldsmith's manifesto? The others, for instance, for those who are saying, well, I can't really bring myself to vote either for Sadiq Khan or to Zach Goldsmith. Well, have you tried reading, for instance, the Greens, Respect, the Lib Dems, any others, the Independents? Have you tried doing that? The problem is, again, we're looking for quick fix solutions, and it doesn't work.
Can I add one more thing, please? Okay. This is fine, what you have mentioned, but let us look at it from maybe a broader perspective, from political perspective in general, at least theoretical. That's why I asked you to substantiate this fact, or to prove it, that the mayor is the second powerful position. Because someone might look at it from this perspective, that we need a balance of powers. So if the power now is in the hands of the Tory only, of the Conservatives only, then it might become problematic. And we have seen, what you have said is absolutely true, but we have seen the policies of the conservative, especially against Muslims, and all these laws that have been introduced. So if all the power will be in their hands, that will be problematic for us. So maybe this is another criteria that we.
But I don't want to give people the wrong idea, because the point you raise is interesting, but the Mayor of London will not have any impact. Any impact on that.
That's why we mentioned
what
this point.
So that was for 2015 last year. When we had the general election, that's when Muslims should have voted for whoever they should have voted for to bring this palace, maybe.
But
but what it does, and I think this is where I can agree with you, what it does is it does a person coming from a different ideological background, different political background, than what is in government, gives a kind of opposition and a voice to the other side. And I think that's what will happen. But that I don't want that to be confused with the legislative side of things.
And I think that Shaykh Haitham, I think that what you're asking, I could answer in a different way. As when I first opened, I said London has an importance globally. London is looked at, from the Middle East, the Arab and Muslim worlds, the Far East, from Africa and the such. London is a very, very important capital. It's very important because tens of millions of people come and they have their vacations and holidays, and they come and there are tens of millions around the world who come and invest. Their savings, they come and buy property, they come and trade and the such. And there are also tens of millions who come and treat and use the healthcare system, private and the like. So London is important globally. Now the question is, and this is part of the message that Sadiq Khan in his campaign sent fairly early on, that having a Muslim mayor will send a very positive message, in that London is truly a multicultural, a very tolerant society, that it sees absolutely no problem whatsoever in the crazy narrative that we're seeing globally about the war on terror and Islamophobia and the such, to actually vote a Muslim mayor to head the city hall at this particular time. So that might be part of the message, and if that is to be sought after, then that might be right. But once again, I think that our focus must be about London and the services delivered to London. I think it's extremely important that the mayor who comes in is competent. I think that the mayor who needs to come in is someone who actually delivers on their promises. I think whoever comes in is someone who delivers to Londoners what they have been missing for the past few years. And Londoners have been edged out of London cost-wise. Londoners have been forced to live outside of Greater London simply because of the cost of living, rent and purchasing and the such. Crime is on the up, and that is problematic. Whether it be, from our point of view, Islamophobia or otherwise, crime is up, and that is problematic. And I think that should be our focus, as well as this mayor needs to bring the world to the City of London, and needs to bring investment, so that that could then enter the cycle of welfare and well-being of Londoners. So I think that ought to be the main shift, focus of Londoners.
Dr. Anas, I totally agree with what you have said, but we need, as Muslims, otherwise why are we discussing the Muslim vote? We can't just discuss it voting only. No, it means that our community has a responsibility, and our community has needs. Why do we feel embarrassed to say, well, we as Muslims, we need these needs?
Not embarrassed. And we actually publish manifestos before each election, research on the key priorities that the Muslim community has.
So besides
does happen.
All the needs that all the Londoners
this is part of
share, we need also to top that by talking about our needs as Muslims.
Of course, absolutely.
And there's no problem with that.
Absolutely, yes.
There's no problem with that.
By
Every
the way,
community does that.
These discussions, I hope, on one or two occasions, I know, because I was involved in some of them, that I hope that every single community that makes up the mosaic of London is also having similar discussions and discussing the Caribbean community in Lambeth, for instance, the Hindu community and the such. They're all having these discussions.
Imagine, when Obama was standing 8 years ago, the black community in America, they were not embarrassed to say, we would like to see a black president. Okay. Because this is the nature of the human being. And definitely, even if he is holding an executive position, at the end he will make a positive change for his community. This is
Is that confirmed though?
No,
because
I'm not talking about in particular about Sadiq Khan or any particular person. I'm talking about in general. My point is, we as Muslims, why do we feel embarrassed to say that? And as Muslims,
No.
we would like to see this and
It's
that.
vital.
And
It's
that.
crucial.
Whether these things are presented to us or given to us by Muslims or non-Muslims.
Part of democracy.
Yeah.
Part of the progress
Exactly,
and well-being
yes.
of democracy
Yes.
is that various interest groups become involved in the discussion
Exactly.
based on their specific
Yes,
interests.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because no one else will speak about the interests of the Muslim community apart from Muslims.
And you know, we forget when we talk about interest groups, we forget one of the most powerful interest groups, which is businesses.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yes.
Giant corporations
Yeah.
or environmentalists.
Yes.
Yeah. So all of this is a sign of a healthy democracy.
Absolutely.
That everyone can have a say and get what they want.
I'm not going to let us get off easy with the criticism that some people had.
You need to be specific with the criticism because
So-
it's fluffy at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I would be doing disservice to those brothers and
Yeah,
sisters who feel genuinely disenfranchised, disempowered by the selection they have before them. Zach Goldsmith's campaign was very Islamophobic. It's been mentioned and criticised widely. The problem some people are having, and which leads them to this men saying everyone's the same, is Sadiq Khan didn't really defend the people who were smeared, like you mentioned Shaykh Salman and no doubt many others.
But you know, can I just stop you there? I think there are some things. You know, I don't actually know the exact history between Shaykh Salman Ghani and Sadiq Khan.
Yeah.
And there are many different things. But let me just tell you this in politically, without actually making it a personal thing. You know, Sadiq Khan voted for same-sex marriage. You know the bill that happened? He voted for it like all other MPs did. Their argument wasn't that they'd done something un-Islamic in that sense. This was a bill that was going to pass anyway. But one of the things people like Sadiq Khan and others did is they brought in a clause in that legislation where it gave exemption to religious institutions from holding these kind of relationships. Okay, or sorry, conducting this kind of marriage. So like a masjid or a synagogue or a church or a temple can say on religious ground we don't have to provide the service. Everyone else has to provide the service. So that's the negotiation they did to kind of get that into the bill. Now the people that were pushing the bill, they didn't have to. Before 8 MPs at that time, there was only 8 Muslim MPs, right? For 8 MPs, they knew they weren't going to use the bill. They wouldn't get it. So this is actually a positive thing that happened, regardless of what my position or anyone else's position on the actual legislation is. Now, Shaykh Salman Ghani campaigned against that legislation. So this is where there's this kind of discrepancy.
I don't want to make it just about the
because you know what it is. You're talking about, and that's why I said be specific.
Yeah. So the point that they're actually making
they're not
is
making a point.
No, the point they're making is, can we trust this person?
Defend Imam Salman Ghani.
No, that's one of many points. So the
let's
main
stick to that point.
Yeah.
So my point is, why should Sadiq Khan defend Shaykh Salman Ghani? And your answer is going to be, but isn't Sadiq Khan a Muslim? And that's what I said right at the beginning is the problem.
But that's not really the argument. The argument is he did this and he voted for the same-sex marriage and he did a whole host of things. And they're saying, such, for example, his attitude towards boycott the Western sanctions, BDS against Israel and so forth.
Okay,
so the impression.
Okay, so what did you say about that? And
so
this is the problematic thing.
So
I think you know it's like the hijab thing. I'll give you a really good. And you know, and I say this to brothers and sisters. And you know, we do this. One of my pet hates is I don't like the Daily Mail. Okay? And a lot of people, don't like the Daily Mail. But you know what amazes me? Because the Daily Mail has a habit of stretching the truth that it is basically a lie and smearing. Okay, but you know what happens? So many Muslims share the Daily Mail when they see a good story that they like. Okay, as if like now all of a sudden the papers wanted to do the truth. Okay, and we allow these media outlets to dictate this conversation. And this is my problem in all of this.
On this, if I may, I mean, it's. I think it's quite important. You see, once again, we're approaching this process from a totally puritanical perspective.
I know someone who likes
black and white,
Yeah.
you know, good and bad. It's not like that. It's not like that. Let's make it absolutely clear. There are no perfect candidates. Absolutely. There are absolutely no perfect candidates.
Absolutely.
There are no candidates, in my mind even, that actually fulfill the kind of image I would like for a mayor of London. I'll be honest. None of them actually satisfy what I would like, you know, as a mayor of this great city. However, this is the kind of choice that we have. I would suggest even, you know, let me play the role that you tried to play just a few minutes ago, Shaykh Haitham. Zach Goldsmith is a good guy. I know Zach Goldsmith fairly well, and I am quite surprised by the rhetoric that has come out of his camp and his campaign.
Yeah.
I would like to think, because I haven't spoken to Zach for ages, but I would like to think that it's simply because his campaign team think that this is what's going to get them the vote. And that, to be honest, afterwards he'll realize how tarnished he became as a result of his campaign team. Because, to be honest, I don't know him to be like this. I'm quite surprised if these words were actually uttered by him himself.
And the same is true of Sadiq Khan as well.
To be honest with you, from this perspective, if we want, we are getting into much politics now. I think Sadiq Khan, from this perspective, was better, because Sadiq Khan did not, first of all, did not polarize it that much, but the two repolarized the whole discussion.
Correct.
It became racial, religious. Okay, Muslim vote. Sadiq Khan didn't do this, which means that he's more competent from this perspective, at least. The other thing is, to be honest with you, defending a person, you don't run your campaign just defending a person or make it an issue. That's why, you know, the Prime Minister, he made a fatal mistake, a big mistake. I don't know who's advising him, to be honest with you. Yeah? When he, in the Parliament of Great Britain, he's talking about, he personalized it.
Exactly.
He mentioned the name. So, but Sadiq Khan, to be honest with you, whether we agree or we disagree with him, he became bigger than this. And he showed that he is really a person for all. And
he's ahead in the polls.
I mean, to be honest,
that's why maybe the people realize that he's not that low.
Shaykh Haitham, after, you're right in describing what David Cameron did as a fatal blow, I believe, to Zach's campaign, because afterwards, immediately afterwards, main conservative commentators such as Peter Oborne, in fact, even Baroness Saeed Avarsi came out, you know, suggesting that, listen, Peter Oborne said it clearly, any decent conservative should now not vote for Zach Goldsmith, in fact, naming
the candidate. Peter Oborne himself actually led the article saying, for the first time, I'm going to vote for a Labour in the mayoral election. So that's impact. But, you know, just going back on that point, because I didn't want to, because I didn't lose the thread. The reason I mentioned the mayor is about the hijab story and how it was twisted and presented.
That was the Express.
The Express. And this is what we've got to understand in terms of how the media present things to us. You know, we're being, like, you know, the media, 80% of the media is controlled by 5 companies and individuals, you know, in this country.
Unfortunately.
So what we're doing is we're being controlled by this, and we need to come out of that, you know, vicious cycle and dictate the discussion ourselves. You know, I think alhamdulillah, social media has provided an opportunity to actually push back on the mainstream media. But unfortunately, we still fall into the same trap. We complain when you know, one of the newspapers, you know, smears me, like, you know, and then I have a lot of brothers that say, I know it's all lies. But then when he smears someone that we don't like, we believe it. We have to change this. And this is the long-term thing. You know, that's what I mean about political maturity. You'll see many in the other communities across, whether it's ethnic communities, religious communities, or business communities, or environmental communities, you'll see they've matured in their politics on this.
I mean, in the true kind of Sabeel and Islam21c tradition and style, I want to inject some fiqh principles into this and interweave the Islamic aspect of this, because we've heard, for example, Sadiq Khan, he voted for things, like the same-sex marriage bill and so forth. Things which, obviously, from an Islamic perspective, in isolation, if you take this in abstract, that, do you agree with X, Y, Z? If no one would disagree that this is, this is something un-Islamic, but put into this context, put into politics, put into, he did this, but there was some benefit in it, or he did something wrong, but there was a bit of benefit, and that kind of stuff. What does Islam actually say about this? What does Sharia say about this? You don't have a reputation for pandering to the West, far from it. Yeah. So, what does Sharia say about this? Because inevitably you're going to get dirty in this game.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do something against, in abstract against your principles. So.
Yeah. I'll come to this point, but I would like to mention maybe a point that might be considered a criteria for voting, the mayoral election, which is, about Zach. Everyone said that he's a nice guy, and everyone was surprised that he put these comments against Sadiq Khan because of Sheikh Sulaiman Ghani. But this raises a very important concern, that does he run? Is he among a strong person?
Is he his own man? Is he his own man?
I was going to say, does he run himself by himself? Is he his own man? Because this raises so many complaints, which brings the point again that, see, it will be all in the hands of one party. Yes.
But we have party politics in this country. I think that's important to understand. The politics of this country is dictated by parties, not individuals.
I agree, no. For mayoral election, we are not voting for a party.
No, we are.
Okay.
No, Sheikh, we are. So, for example, and this is very important to understand, the manifesto for Zach Goldsmith is a conservative manifesto. The manifesto for Sadiq Khan is a Labour manifesto, and the assembly election that we do.
This is where the importance is.
Yeah, the assembly election that we do,
which is like
we're not going to vote. We're not going to vote for an individual. We're going to vote for a party.
Yes, but
so it's
for
party
mayoral
system.
Election, for mayoral election, because everyone is putting his candidate forward because it is historically, or for whatever reason, people become attached to the individual rather than to the party.
Yeah.
So
it's
that's
possible.
why,
it's possible.
Yeah, so
the only independent that's won it is Ken Livingstone when he was kicked out of the Labour Party. That's the truth.
But that's
he might get kicked out as well right now.
But that's why Zach's personality was the center of the focus. Sadiq was the center of the focus. So it is true that it is a party-based election, but the personality here in mayoral election is crucial. And that brings the question again. Maybe it is something that we need to consider.
I think
that competent person, is he his own self? Whatever he says, does that represent him? Or
Shaykh Haitham, what you're speaking about is an incredibly important subject to be debated across society as a whole, because unfortunately time after time after time, and now we're seeing it. I mean, now we're busy with our elections, but we're also watching what's happening in America. Unfortunately, rather than this, let's use a term, this great show of democracy, where people debate ideas and policies and strategies and plans and futures and the such, we're talking about people. We're talking about people, how they look, how they dress, what they said, what they, how they slipped, what they mentioned, and that is to the detriment of everyone.
And who's making us talk about the person?
Exactly.
Personalities. Who is putting these things in our head?
I think this needs to be a society, a pan society campaign to actually bring the media to task over this. How is it that they are allowed to bring the whole discussion about such a crucial issue for millions of people in this country to the mere fact that someone looks this way or dresses this way or prays this way? You can't separate. You can't separate the person. Of course, absolutely. But it's one of the problems. It's absolutely one of the problems.
In terms of having his own autonomy. Because
Yeah.
somebody wants to vote for him as the mayor.
Absolutely, you want to strong. You want someone who's strong.
It's the same thing in Islamic. Sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off there. It's the same thing in Islamic organizations.
True.
You may elect someone, the Amir, like Islam21c maybe already has an Amir or someone, but he or she also will have a shura. And yes, as a leader, I can do whatever I want, but maybe it won't happen if I don't actually take counsel and actually bring other people on board.
But I think
So
what the Shaykh
the
is saying
concept
is,
isn't very
is he a leader or is he just...
No, the point Sheikh made is he his own man?
Yeah.
I think in terms of the only way you'll answer that question is on their past. And if you look at the two candidates, one has vast experience in holding high government positions, cabinet positions, and dealing with actually major policy things.
Which one is that?
Well, Sadiq Khan,
yeah.
and Zach Goldsmith is fairly new and really doesn't have any policy. And if you, I don't know if you saw the London, it's not the London, UK Citizens hustings.
I didn't know.
Okay, so they did that's the biggest hustings done in London about all of this. And if you look at the discussion,
Oh, the one a couple of months ago.
No, a couple of months. It's about 5 days ago.
No,
4 or 5
no, I
days
didn't
ago,
see
yeah.
that. I didn't see
So
that.
it's where policies were actually discussed. So you can see who is where.
Yeah.
But I think it's wrong for us to think for a moment that a one person can do whatever they want.
Can I turn the question? Can I make the shape the question? I'll tell you what, Shaykh Haitham. If I can shape the question differently, the question that if I was to ask that question, I would be worried about this: will the next mayor of London, whether he be from the Labour, Tories, Lib Dems, Respect, or will they themselves, as the mayor whom I named, who I put my cross against their names, will they be running the show or will their party be running the show? Yeah. Now, I will have to say, despite the fact that I supported Ken Livingstone, for instance, in the past, and I supported him in his campaign against Boris Johnson, but I have to say that Boris Johnson was, to a degree, his own man. He was his own man. Yeah. I couldn't really say that the Conservatives actually ran City Hall, to the credit of Boris Johnson, despite my differences with him and his party. Yeah. That is what I would like to think of anyone who wins the mayoral elections, whether it be Zach or whether it be Sadiq. Will they be their own people, so that basically it's not whoever's sitting in Downing Street or the opposition is actually running City Hall. But listen, again, we're not talking about a perfect situation.
Of course.
And there will be that kind of interference.
So for the thing that people are asking is, because you don't have, we have far from a perfect situation. It's like voting for, two, really bad candidates for many people's perspective.
Based on personality politics,
isn't it? Perhaps based on the history and the voting record and so forth, that people are arguing. Islamically, is it not better, some are arguing, just to keep your hands clean and maybe vote for a third?
Yeah, you mentioned this point. Let us
this is a very good question.
Yeah, let us merge it with the discussion about politics in general. See, there are, by the way, I'm going to Turkey in a few weeks, and some people, I'm going to give some lectures here and there. A brother told me about some people whom I'm going to lecture with. They told me that be careful. If you love Erdogan, they hate Erdogan. Then I said, why? This is a perfect example that we learn from. They said because Erdogan did not bring Sharia, Erdogan did this and that, Erdogan did not stand firmly against the aggression in Syria, so they hate him. So please, if in your seminar, don't mention Erdogan, don't praise him, don't. See, for those people are living in a bubble. They are not really living in the real world. Yeah? That's why Sharia, there are certain things that are puritanical, but there are so many things that are fluid. Yeah. Fluid in Sharia, especially in the practice of in the practice of theory. And many people do not, our brothers and sisters and many Muslims, they do not differentiate between the theory and the practice of the theory. And that's why they fall into major mistakes. I'll give you a simple example. Simple example might provoke another discussion, but we have from an Islamic perspective that we have certain boundaries when men and women are interacting. Now, people call this free mixing. Many people say, Shaykh, well, free mixing is haram, okay, but is it allowed to go to universities because it is free mixing? Is it allowed to go to a party, wedding party of my relatives because it is free mixing? And my answer is, see, that is the theory. Now, if you want to put it into practice, you cannot say that this is exactly free mixing, this is not free mixing. There is a fluidity between both. And that is applicable on politics. In politics, there is no clear black and white. Yes? There is no perfect man. See, tell me, after the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, no one came like Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Are we going to say that all are bad? Subhanallah. Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, Harun al-Rashid, etc. All the Abbasi Khulafa. Someone told me these Abbasi caliphs is just one of the leaders. I said, Astaghfirullah al-Azim. These people are like one of the Muslim leaders now. He said, yeah, what's the difference? Because of this black and white mentality. If he's not Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, then I should keep away from that. They are all bad. La. It is not like this. I hope that this
can I just
and
yes,
if I may conclude from even Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala said the wisdom is not to know what is bad and what is evil. He said no, the wisdom, what is bad and what is good. He said the wisdom is to know, to be able to identify what is the worst of two bad things.
Yes.
And what is the best of two good things.
Yes.
This is the wisdom. This is the real fiqh.
Can I just, in response to the question, because I do think that the question is central. It's the question that basically I'm asked about every single time I speak about political engagement. And that is, well, you know what, it's just too complicated. I don't want to risk it. I might vote for someone and then he brings in, certain policies and I'll feel liable before Allah and therefore I'd rather stay away. The fact is that even if you choose to stay away, you're taking part.
Exactly.
That's a very interesting question.
Your refrainment, your abstainment from will favor one against the other. It plays a part. You cannot, within the system that we have, you cannot say that by me sitting at home and doing absolutely nothing that you're not involved. You are involved. You are involved.
That's a very important point. I don't want to rush this, but I'd just like to inform the audience at home that we're taking a short 5-minute break, and I really want to encourage this discussion, so I don't want to kind of rush it. So we'll take a break. Please join us after the short 5-minute break. And in the meantime, please do remember to tweet hashtag Muslim Vote, and our Islam21c Twitter handle is @Islam21c. So on behalf of the panelists and myself, Jazakumullahu khairan, and see you shortly after a few minutes. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
mics on, please.
We're still finishing at 15:15.
Yeah, finish at 15:15. You've got 15 minutes to wrap up. So.
15 minutes. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to this panel discussion with your host Salman Butt and our esteemed guests. We left before the break on a very, very important question, a very important topic, and that was if there are two people, two main candidates, and you don't see a big difference between them, is it a good idea just to say, well, I'm going to keep my hands clean and either not vote or vote for a third person who maybe is a long way down the list? Because this is a question I have actually been put to, I've read and see some people finding merit in it.
Sheikh?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Brother Anas answered this question already, because we can't escape participation. And I'll give you, because Anas has already given it, but let me give you an example of Burnley. For those of us who know Burnley, it's got a very big Muslim community. Yeah. But Burnley was one of the first councils to actually get a BNP council. That councillor got in by 4 votes. Yeah. Okay. So, imagine the damage this one councillor can cause being on the council. The access to information, the right to actually veto things and cause issues and problems.
And Burnley has lots of Muslims.
It has a very high Muslim population. All because 4 Muslims maybe didn't bother to vote.
See, let me mention this technical issue. Maybe it clarifies the issue to the audience. Dr. Anas mentioned that a very important principle, that whether you are actively participating or you are not actively participating, you are participating. How does that? Imagine that there are 10 people in this room. We want to vote for A or B. 4 brothers or 4 members voted for A. 3 people voted for B. Yeah? So now we have 3 more people who said we don't want to get our hands dirty in this dirty politics. So A now, who got 4 votes, he will say to them, yes, politics is dirty, it's haram, don't get involved. Why? Because if they keep quiet, he will win. Yes. Agree? So actually, they voted for him. Correct. Indirectly. Correct. Yeah? Absolutely. So we need to tell those people, the 3, no. Not don't waste it. No. Even it is to the other level. Absolutely. Don't give it to the wrong one just by being naive. Absolutely. Yeah, and you don't know how the game works. Absolutely. Yeah.
But this is all predicated on the presumption that there's a difference between A and B.
There is a difference.
Yeah?
Of course there is.
So in terms of real, politics.
I think that there are 3 levels, 3 main levels that we need to look at. First of all, the person, and I think we've spoken a lot about that. Yeah. Second, the manifesto of each, the pledges of each. And the third is the party that each represents. And I think that those 3 levels need to be considered when making, that particular vote. Yeah.
I mean, we published a few days ago an article from the CEO of MEND, and in the article was linked the details that MEND published on the upcoming mayor elections. Can you just give the viewers at home a brief summary of what you believe are the differences in policy of the different candidates?
I think, because Anas mentioned 3 levels, and the 4th level, I think the most important level is what you actually require yourself. And this goes back to my original statement about the tail wagging the dog. We need to bring politics back to the people. meaning it should be people dictated. It should be interest group dictated. It should be in groups that have particular issues dictated. So what do I mean by that? The point of our manifesto is to look at what are the major issues affecting the Muslim community. Okay, whether it's the London mayoral election or whether it's the Police and Crime Commissioner election, which is looking at mainly just policing, whatever the difference are, or the general election. So we've done that, and also we've looked at it on the, like what Anna said right at the beginning, which is that we've got to look at this holistically. This is our country, this is our town, this is our city. Whatever good we bring in is going to benefit everyone. Okay, so the key points our manifesto looks at are the same kind of issues that deal with. So why is housing such an important thing for us? We've put that in our manifesto because we know Muslim community suffers maybe acutely more than other communities in this area. Employment, why have we put that in the manifesto? Why is that so important? Because we have such a young population, we have so many graduates coming out of university and everything else, finding it very difficult to get a job. Okay, this is an important thing. Why is crime and security very important on our manifesto? Because the Islamophobia that is on the rise, we all know, but the lack of how it's being prosecuted is problematic. But also importantly, the counter-terrorism legislation that is out there, in particular Prevent. We know what the issues Prevent is calling. Specifically, the channel referrals that happen in Prevent is still, hidden. So we're looking for transparency because remember, policing is by consent in this country. Okay, meaning the police offers us a service. We shouldn't we be the ones who say what kind of service we want? So all of these things are important. But also these things are important to the wider community as well. To have a police offering a service that is transparent is important. Schedule 7 affects Muslims a lot, but it's also affecting non-Muslims. Stop and search affects BME and Muslims a lot, but it also affects non-Muslim communities as well. So kind of the key points we put in our manifestos do have a Muslim angle to it, but also we've made sure it's broad enough to be inclusive of London communities.
If I may add to this, see, Azad, there is also another important point, which is I was looking at the leaflets that were distributed just a few days ago about the manifesto. I went to the website just to check, see whether Zak or Sadiq, both of them more or less talk about the same thing. In
terms of the issues.
Yes. Both of them spoke about housing, both of them spoke about safety, policing, etc. Both of them spoke about extremism as well, as far as I remember. Now there is an issue. Who is able to deliver? That should be also in our minds. Who is able to deliver? And that, in order to know who is able to deliver, we need to look at the history of the person. Is he competent enough to deliver, or he is a politician, he just say something, and then at the end of the day, either he doesn't deliver because he's unable, or he was just speaking in order to get the votes. So that is a very important criteria.
And from that point, maybe, and from this particular platform, we can start the discussion for the next 4 years, and that is that we monitor the performance of whoever comes in and becomes Mayor of London, and we hold them responsible and accountable against the pledges that they made throughout the campaigning period. So I think that when we do that, then we feel more engaged, then we feel that kind of ownership of the decision that we made, the decision that the city made, and the future of that particular city. So it's I think then we start that particular culture of engagement, so that it doesn't become a question anymore. Khalas, we stop talking about, Ya akhi, have you voted, have you registered to vote, or have you not? It's a foregone conclusion. It's how we better and how we develop and how we improve that engagement.
I want to also mention one important point, because the way I see the Muslim community, mashallah, is evolving. Our young brothers, wallahi, the way I see them, they are more competent than many other people. If you go to even in schools, even in schools, those who have English language as their mother tongue, or those who have, in fact, dual language, yes, many of them, if they don't face cultural problems at home or major economical problems at home, normally they perform better. And I don't want to praise Sadiq, or he's not a friend of mine, he's not, I don't know how, maybe I have a problem with him. Yeah, this is something else. But it really impresses it is a model for many Muslims that, look, his father was a bus driver, and then he wanted, he went to the school, he went to law, so he progressed. It gives me an indication, although I have a problem with him.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a good story. But it's a good story.
Yes,
it's a good
story.
Yes.
That this person can be a competent person. And it is inspiring for many Muslim brothers as well. That don't think that we are a very bad community. Our individuals are really, we are always failing. And you know what the media is focusing on, that look, in terms of education we are underachieving, in terms of this we are underachieving, in terms of even employment. I mentioned to that journalist, I said, yeah, employment, because the minute they find the name Ahmad or Muhammad, or of course they will not employ
Shaykh,
them.
you know, there is one hidden truth for all of this, because I see the Muslim community very positively.
Yeah.
Now, mashallah, alhamdulillah, I've had the chance to travel across the country and see, and I agree with you totally. You know, there is this impression we're poor, we're this, we're all this kind of stuff. Being in that situation, you know, the biggest community that gives to charity, including atheists as well as other religions, is the Muslim.
Is the Muslim community.
By far.
Yes.
By far.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not that bad, and what we have, we know how to put it into good work.
Yes.
I agree.
That's naturally there, and I can see that.
Maybe media and promotion
So
of ourselves
exactly
is the biggest.
All I
weakness.
see as impediments to a natural progress, as you mentioned, are some misunderstanding, which is little bit, which I can say in a nutshell. For some people, you know, what they've been doing all their lives, they've been watering a banana tree, expecting mangoes to grow. This is a tiny problem, but the bigger problem is we've not mainstreamed this participation into our community. You know, it's still a little bit of a taboo subject, and I think like you said, you know, the more imams, the more discussions happen in masjid. You know that there's nothing wrong with a masjid pushing for voter registration. It's not political activity.
Absolutely.
It's actually
it's good citizenship. It's good citizenship. Absolutely.
But many of our mosques actually think they're breaking charity. Exactly. They think they're breaking charity commission regulation. So, you know, these are the things that we need to overcome. And the final thing I think is really important to understand is we need to have a good political education. And I think, you know, because sometimes people think politics is just, you know, being an MP, being a councillor, all of this kind of stuff. No, this is important. But also politics is also lobbying. Like what you just said, after someone becomes a politician, who's following up all the pledges that they said they were going to do?
Correct.
You know, is it happening? Who's going to hold them to account on all of these things? Lobbying, behind the scenes, all of this is very important.
Exactly.
But the most important thing is we have to know how the system works. And, you know, unfortunately, there's many politicians, you know, they've come to our courses, many politicians who don't know how the political system works, how parliament works, how councils work. And this is very, very important. We have to have that knowledge.
Azad, we just got a few questions from social media about, you know, the difference. Is there actually any difference between Sadiq Khan and Zach Goldsmith, for example? They're citing, for example, Labour were the ones who introduced Prevent.
But that's not mayoral.
In terms of
let's hear what they're saying.
Also is, you mentioned things like Schedule 7 and so forth, these are really important things, but is there any evidence that one or the other candidate will actually have any change, having any impact on that?
Okay,
Something
so
like
in terms
Schedule
of, is there a difference between the two candidates? I think the Sheikhs also mentioned it, is if you go on their website, you can see where they stand. Okay, you know, I think on both websites they got their 10 key policies, if you like. So then you can see the immediate difference. I also, you know, just recall what Anas mentioned earlier, which is not just what the individuals are going to do, but where the parties themselves are ideologically. Now, in terms of our manifesto and key things, so for example, if the next mayor agrees, and this is also for the police and crime commissioner, we will, in their constabulary, review the use of Schedule 7, okay, or review the use of stop and search, or that they will improve the training of police officers so that they can handle Islamophobia a little bit more sensitively than they are, or that they will invest in an officer actually going around where places of worship, so there's reassurance, so the far right wing groups that turn up all of a sudden invade mosques and things like that, that they will if a police and crime commissioner is willing to do that makes them, that elevates them already on top of what they've already said in our own eyes, because that's something specific to us. So this is what needs to happen, and we're not asking those questions. What we're doing is we're talking amongst ourselves. I'm not standing for election. MEND is not standing for election. MEND, what we've done is objectively put key issues out there. We've held hustings in London. We've held hustings outside of London in 5 or 6 cities, and also in Wales, okay? And we've put all of these things to the candidates. Inshallah, in the next couple of days, we will publish a lot of those stuff online so that the community can make an informed decision. We're not going to say vote for this person or that person. We're going to say this is where they stand on these major issues.
But you can't deny that there is a palpable kind of disempowerment and disillusionment.
Of course there is.
Yvette Cooper, for example, the Shadow Home Secretary, we would expect, someone from the opposition, let alone from Labour, who's traditionally been far less right-wing than the Tories. She said, Theresa May hasn't gone far enough, for example, in her counter-extremism
But you're
policies and so
conflating, and this is very important, the whole issue of security, okay, it didn't happen just after 9/11. Okay, those of us that have been working in this area, we know this issue was coming, and the focus on Muslim security was coming long before then. But after 9/11, what happened? There was a massive panic that, there is a problem here. Okay, and then these legislations come out. Those of us who kind of in 2000, when the Crime and Security Act actually came out, how many Muslims actually wrote and saw and challenged it? I'll tell you one Muslim who did, and he was a member of the Muslim Council of Britain, Sadiq Khan. He actually wrote against that bill, that legislation. But who was the government that brought in that legislation? It was the Labour government. So is that a contradiction? No, it's not. There's a party of, nearly 500,000 members. There's going to be a difference.
Correct.
You're going to have within that party,
and we see now how there's the Corbynnites and the Blairites and having this
The
wrangle.
Labour of yesterday is not the Labour of
and
today.
there are certain things that considered to be the establishment's responsibility. It is not the party. Whether this party or that party came to power, there are certain things that the government, the country, the state or the establishment, I don't know, has to do.
They're expected to do.
Yeah, they are expected to do. Yeah.
Well, final thoughts, and we have we're just wrapping up now, and I want to ask you a question that you're more than welcome to answer or not answer. Shaykh Haitham, who will you be voting for on Thursday?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I have issues with Sadiq Khan, okay, but I have more issues with the Tories and the other side. Let us put it like this.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me emphasize on one point again. Please, brothers and sisters, let us not be emotional. Let us see the world. The whole world is based on interest. Correct. Where is my interest? Even if I hate something, I will do it. Correct. If my interest goes with that.
Correct.
Full stop.
Correct.
Jazakallah khair. Azad, same question to you.
well, we don't actually support any candidates. We've published a manifesto, and what we will do is publish where the candidates stand on that manifesto, and it's for the community to decide who they vote for.
Jazakallah khair. Very diplomatic answer.
I have to be.
Anas, final words.
I've already voted. I've sent my my vote because I vote by postal ballot. But interestingly enough, this year my son has just turned 18, and we're having these discussions at home, and it's extremely likely that my son will be making his own decision, which will be totally different from the decision that I made. But again, like Shaykh Haitham said, let's think about what it is that we need, what it is that we want, and let's start from there.
Jazakallah khair. Well, viewers at home, I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. This has been a panel discussion, a big discussion on behalf of Sabeel and Islam21c. I invite you all to join us at the next big discussion, which will likely be this summer's family retreat, which is going to be the summer bank holiday weekend, inshallah. More information on that is at familyretreat.co.uk. I invite you once again to visit the website islam21c.com